He also said that if I worked with them, I would become very rich, and that he could immediately offer me 600 million.
This was one of the many bombshells dropped at the 4-year-long State Capture Commission of Inquiry, in which former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas revealed the true extent of the Gupta's reach during the Zuma presidency. Today, the GNU is rewarding Jonas with perhaps one of his biggest challenges yet to repair ties with the US Trump administration. But does Jonas have what it takes to be our special envoy in Washington, D.C., especially after he, in 2020, labeled President Trump a racist, homophobe, and narcissistic right-winger?
We saw that Rasul being thrown out of America being considered a persona non grata. Now we are sending someone to America to fix the relationship, and this emerges on social media, and the CEO of AfriForum went as far as taking President Trump to the comments that Jonas made 5 years ago. So now that raises another question: will Jonas even be leaving this country to mend those relations?
Meanwhile, Pretoria solidifies its partnership with Beijing by demanding Taiwan leave the capital.
The argument is you can't have two Chinese, in inverted commas, Chinese embassies in South Africa, and now we are being told actually the Taiwan office, which was downgraded from being an embassy, is now moving from the capital in Pretoria down to Joburg.
Well, that's a geopolitical conversation of note with our politics editor Andisiwe Makinana next. Later in the show, an Eastern Cape swimming pool is drained of taxpayers' money, and finally a Limpopo cycling trio embark on their own Cape epic.
To stay tuned to The Lead for every edition, hit the follow and subscribe buttons on our Spotify, Apple, and YouTube podcast channels.
My name's Graham Robenheimer. Let's chat all this and more right here on The Lead on News 24. President Cyril Ramaphosa's deployed Mcebisi Jonas as special envoy to the United States following now former Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool's shock ejection from Washington for labeling the Trump administration as quote-unquote supremacist. Heftier US import tariffs, although now paused, followed in that wake, and US President Donald Trump now questions whether or not he should attend the upcoming G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg, again claiming without an iota of evidence that wanton farmland grabs and white genocide is unfolding in South Africa. Now, Jonas has quite the job to undertake, and he admits that there are no quick fixes. Joining me now to inspect the latest in our Cape Town studios, with my pleasure, is politics editor Andisiwe Makinana. Great to chat again with you, Andisiwe. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show.
Fantastic. I really appreciate it. I think off the bat, this is quite important to note that Mr. Jonas, he's not the new ambassador for South Africa to the United States. He's what you call a special envoy, and I did a little bit of background reading here, and we've already found that essentially the presidency's shown that there is a difference here, there is a discrepancy. In short, Jonas won't be bogged down by bureaucracy, and he actually has to report to number one, the president, right?
Yes, the presidency has moved to clarify that unlike an ambassador, unlike Mr. Rasool, Mr. Jonas will not be burdened by the bureaucracy that an ambassador would be working on. So his job is just to negotiate on behalf of South Africa. We've heard that it's an ad hoc position. He's not going to be full-time based in the United States.
And I see, as per the statement by the presidency, it says, quote-unquote, by the statement written up by Vincent Magwenya, as a former Deputy Finance Minister of South Africa, Mr. Jonas brings extensive governmental experience to his new diplomatic role. He concurrently holds the position of independent non-executive chairman of the MTN Group. That's something that was public for a long time, and a role he'll maintain alongside his responsibilities as my special envoy. You know, we know about his big bombshell moments at the State Capture Commission, Andisiwe. But who is he exactly? What is his political past? He hasn't really been in the public eye for the longest time. What do we know about him?
Oh, well, I think everybody in South Africa would remember this man who blew the whistle on the Guptas, on what many of us were already suspicious of. He came forward at a time when he was the Deputy Minister of Finance, told the country about how he was promised the job of Finance Minister by people that were not even part of government. They were not elected, but we know them as friends of former President Jacob Zuma. And we all stood up when he told us that he was offered and turned down 600 million rands. So he made these allegations, firstly to the media, but then he went on to back them up in the Zondo Commission. So he is highly respected by many in our country, because it's not every day that someone will turn down such an offer, where you're not only given a position, but you're given so much money to take up the position. He is an ANC politician. He's got his roots in the Eastern Cape. In the ANC, I don't think he has been playing that much of an active role in recent years, especially since he left office. As we know, he is the chairperson of MTN. He has recently started a think tank that looks into issues of governance in South Africa. So he's been like a background kind of person, and we haven't seen much of him since the Zondo Commission.
Ooh, these think tanks are problematic, and you see where they got Rasool in big trouble prior when he espoused some of his views. He's got a big challenge here. He's going to have to go to the United States now and rekindle relationships. He's got to open new doors. He has to get the attention of many senior officials within the Trump administration, possibly many individual characters that the South African government has not been able to deal with before. We know from international relations a ministry that indicated that once Rasool's ejection had come about, they were ready to pull the trigger on some of their plans to get the relationship going again, to discuss what was at stake in terms of trade, etc. I mean, do you feel confident about Jonas in Washington?
First of all, he has acknowledged that this will be a challenging role for him. I mean, he said there will be no quick fixes. Remember, he's now deployed to promote a healthy working relationship between South Africa and the United States. I like the fact that he's being honest about it. It's not going to be easy. But let's remember that back in August 2021, President Cyril Ramaphosa appointed 6 people that were referred to as the presidential envoys on investment. Cebisi Jonas was one of those people. These were the people that were going to travel the world, the West and Europe specifically, to try and get investment for South Africa. So one of the two things that I would say is the president obviously has confidence in Mr. Jonas. And secondly, in light of the whole Rasool saga, we needed someone who is level-headed. And I think Cebisi is viewed in that light, not just by his boss, the president, but by many people in South Africa. How the Americans are going to receive him is another story. But I can tell you what I've picked up over the past few hours is generally when South Africa interacts with America, you interact with a variety of stakeholders. It's not just the White House that we are trying to reach to. We want to talk to Congress. We want to talk to the Americans themselves. So we may not be speaking to the head of the administration, but he will be talking to people in the administration who may want to hear more about what exactly is happening down in South Africa.
Jonas, however, he's gone viral now for comments that he made during the 2020 Ahmed Kathrada annual lecture, in which he called Trump a racist homophobe. Surely, though, Andy, this is going to follow him to the White House now.
Yes, the emergence of these comments that he made 5 years ago have thrown a spanner in the works, because now I'm wondering if he will be able to go to the US at all, considering that just last month, our ambassador to the US was thrown out for comments similar, where he compared President Trump to where he said Trump was a supremacist. Correct. And that, and the behavior of the American president was put to question. We saw that Rasool being thrown out of America being considered a persona non grata. Now we are sending someone to America to fix the relationship, and this emerges on social media, and the CEO of AfriForum went as far as taking President Trump to the comments that Jonas made 5 years ago. So now that raises another question. Will Jonas even be leaving this country to mend those relations?
But Andy, in my mind, there begs another question. Does the presidency not vet what its candidates for these various positions have said publicly in the past, because with diplomatic situations so sensitive such as these, surely the presidency would have been aware of this?
Well, that's a question we'll be throwing to the presidency. Do you not vet the people that you appoint to these positions? But then again, I'm wondering, are there any South Africans left that have anything positive to say about President Trump, with the exception of Kali Kriel?
And you see where Trump now suggests he won't attend the G20 summit upcoming in Johannesburg. We're being reminded it's in November later this year. His messaging is sort of along the lines of questioning, why should we attend? Why should a US be there when there's quote-unquote genocide happening in South Africa, that there's wanton land grabs, that, you know, white people are being pushed out, et al., etc. We've heard this time and time again. Of course, all of that lies, blatant lies. But in our view, how critical would it be to have the United States, especially with the hegemonic order of geopolitics of today sort of changing quite rapidly, and China coming up the ranks? How important would it be to have Trump and his administration in Johannesburg in November?
Well, it would be really awkward if President Trump does not come to South Africa. Remember that America is taking over as the G20 presidency after South Africa. So if he's not here, it means literally there will be no US president that President Ramaphosa will be handing over to. Maybe we'll send officials, we do not know. The other thing I wanted to say about...
not Marco Rubio.
Well, Marco Rubio may not be the official. We don't know what's going to happen. But I also want to say it's difficult really to listen to President Trump without hearing Elon Musk.
Sure.
Because you wonder why specifically South Africa is targeted in this way. There are countries that have real human rights abuses. You've got Russia that is bombing Ukraine up to this day. You've got other countries that he says absolutely doesn't have a problem with, where there are real crises, like, as I say, with Ukraine, for instance, and Russia. And yet, President Trump, where there is no evidence of this white genocide, of this land grabs that he talks about, and every week or every second week he's got an issue with South Africa. So it's difficult to...
The Musks are in his ear.
Exactly. You wonder if Musk was to get Starlink next week, would Trump still continue in this vein? So I think...
And my argument to that, when we don't have to go down this rabbit hole as well, is that I do believe, after interviewing Elon's dad twice, I suspect that he's had a lot to say to Elon, as Elon found himself in a very senior position within the Trump administration. And I think that's how Elon gets a lot of his information, is possibly from his dad. That's what I suspect.
But then again, you've got American diplomats in South Africa. What are they telling their president? What are they telling the administration? Because the reality is, you ask them, which farm was grabbed? Which farm was grabbed in South Africa over the last 10 years, over the last 5 years, over the past year? No one can tell you. So you wonder, where does he get this information? I agree with you. Maybe the influence is Musk through his father, but it definitely can't be the information that he's getting from the diplomats that are deployed in South Africa.
And of course, there's an argument to be made that AfriForum and Solidarity have been a key proponent in getting these messages across. They've done extensive international news interviews. You can just YouTube and you can see for yourself all of the claims that have been made there. Quickly shifting, and I thought we'd just get a quick update here. We don't have to go too much into it because I know it's also quite of a geopolitical quagmire. But we see the front page story on News 24 today speaks about the International Relations Ministry now taking the official position, although long-standing, that the Taiwanese diplomatic office, it's basically a lowly liaison office that was in Pretoria, has to move to Johannesburg, the economic hub. That's what the ministers come out and said needs to happen as South Africa follows this one China policy. What's the latest here?
Well, that's exactly the reasons that they are giving, that this is all being done to sort of commit or to show commitment to a UN resolution that there is one China. So the argument is you can't have two Chinese, in inverted commas, Chinese embassies in South Africa. And now we are being told actually the Taiwan office, which was downgraded from being an embassy, is now moving from the capital in Pretoria down to Joburg. And the reasons are, well, you could judge for yourself what are the reasons, but we're told about Joburg being an economic hub. But what does that have to do with anything? Because you could say the same for all the embassies. Move them to Joburg, which is an economic hub of Gauteng.
Sure.
So I really don't understand why now, and I really don't understand what is the hurry to do these things and what really is the thinking of our government, especially at this time when we've got all eyes on us, when we have these bigger fights that we're fighting, and we just continue with. There's no perfect time to do this, but I think that we have much bigger problems that we should be focusing on.
Perhaps contingencies ahead of Xi Jinping, the Chinese president's visit to the G20 later in Johannesburg. Although, ironically, the Taiwanese liaison office would then be in Joburg at the same time.
That is actually the funny part. But I now remember reading that things became awkward in 2023 when he was here for the BRICS summit that we hosted in Joburg. And then he had to visit the Chinese embassy, and someone had to explain what are the Taiwanese doing here. I'm not sure of the full story, but I understand that there were awkward moments around that time.
Well, at least you didn't have my experience one day when I was in the Chinese embassy. I was a young reporter, and under Siwe, I said it was the Republic of China. They got very upset with me, and they made a joke, and they corrected me, and they said it was the People's Republic of China. That's a very bad move on a young reporter's side there. Let's end off really quickly. We haven't seen South Africa as a sovereign state in this position since the end of apartheid, to be so prominently involved in geopolitical matters, notwithstanding the international ICJ case regarding Israel and Palestine, notwithstanding our squabble with the US, notwithstanding our massive placement within BRICS, and the Taiwanese diplomatic saga has also been something to talk about. All of this together, South Africa, would you have ever thought that in 2025 we'd be in this position?
Look, it shows that we are in a maturing democracy. We must be able to take the good with the bad. I think in 2024 we had a good year. When we took Israel to court, a lot of countries supported us. We were proud to be South Africans. And now it's not such a good year for us. So I think we should be able to handle both the good and the bad. I think at the end of the day, facts will speak for themselves. South Africa has got 101 problems that I feel President Trump could sanction us, for. There are so many things that are going wrong. But for me, the problem is when they choose misinformation, when they choose to base all these sanctions on all these tariffs and all these other punishments that they are meting against our country on things that are not true. I think the truth will prevail. And it's really also a learning lesson for our government. We never thought we would be here at this point. And it's really, for us as reporters that are reporting on these issues, we can't wait to see how it all plays out at the end of the day.
Sometimes overwhelming. That's our politics editor with News 24, Andisiwe Makinana. Thank you so much for chatting to me on The Lead today. Well, hopefully we'll have you back on an edition very soon.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
To our trending topic now, and millions more are being pumped into an ambitious plan to open to the public a dirty Olympic-sized swimming pool in Buffalo City in the Eastern Cape. Taxpayers have already shelled out around 30 million rand for the Mdantsane pool, only for it to stand shallow, brimming with dirt and algae, largely due to shoddy workmanship. Now, members of parliament have heard it'll take a further 14.5 million rand for the pool's apparent repairs. Amid officials' concerns, any major changes will see the pool lose its Olympic-sized status. The irony being, of course, that the pool is not in use anyway. The draft findings of a forensic investigation into how the pool was financed are yet to be placed before the Buffalo City Council for consideration. In the meantime, the Municipal Public Accounts Committee has called this pool project a financial disaster and a prime example of wasteful and fruitless spending. That story updates thanks to our reporter Sitandiwe Valapi. And finally, it took them 14 days between two cities over more than 1,700 kilometers. For 3 cyclists embarking on the journey from Burgersfort in Limpopo all the way to Cape Town, their goal's been to open a cycling club for the local youth back home. Team Gauta BMX left on the 1st of April before arriving outside Cape Town City Hall this week to cheers from a crowd of supporters, among them even Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis. Their fans on TikTok supplied the trio with food, drinks, beer, and even an escort vehicle along the way. And they cycled with one message in mind: God is in charge. That story is thanks to Noxolo Sabia. Well, from US Special Envoy appointments to a Limpopo Trio's Cape Epic, that's been our show. We'd love more of your mails, comments, and especially voice notes on The Lead. You can mail us, thelead@24.com. That's to be heard in our next edition. And to stay tuned to every edition, please hit the follow and subscribe buttons. That's on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Daily episodes drop Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. My name's Graham Robenheimer. So long as there's news, we'll have The Lead.